Hello everyone, my name is Annie Behari and I am the Chief Program Officer here at Service to School. Thank you for clicking the link to learn more about how to fill out your Common Application. I'm going to walk you through what the Common Application looks like for the 2025 to 2026 application cycle. Application has been refreshed for this application cycle, and that's why we are recording this update. Most of the information is the same, and it's very basic demographic, biographical information, but we'll walk you through and let you know about some things to be aware of and some tips to filling it out. So first, I'll share my screen. All right. So again, this is the Common App for first year students. And this layout is a little bit different if you filled out Common Apps from previous years. This layout is different, but the information is the same. One thing to be aware of, when we talk about filling out the Common App, we mean the actual Common Application. So this is the application that's going to go to all the schools that you're applying to using the Common App. So that's that. And then of course, each school will have their own supplemental application. So the supplemental applications are going to be under My Colleges. And then you'll see every school that you're applying to is going to have its own set of questions to answer. And again, those are specific to each school. That's why they're supplementing the Common App. So let's go back to the Common App and let's talk about filling it out. The first thing is your legal name, and then if you have a different first name that you use, you can fill that out. One thing to note is that if you are filling out a different first name, just know that you might receive formal letters from the universities with that name. So for example, an acceptance letter will have this preferred first name if that's what you've entered. So if you don't want letters to go to that or being addressed using that name, then don't fill that part out. So I'll select no here, middle name, last name, suffix, and then if you have any other legal names that you have used in the past, you can fill that out, and then your date of birth. As we hit continue, you'll see that the green check marks appear. The home address, it does autofill, so that will pop up based on what you've entered. An alternate mailing address is really if you are expecting or want to receive mail at a different location. It's especially important if you're going to be there around the time of decision release. So it's probably best to have your mail go to your permanent home address because things can be mailed to you at different times, obviously. But if you have another address where you get or receive mail, you can put that in there. Contact details, here's a phone number and then an alternate phone. Demographics, you can choose your gender, your sex, your pronouns, and as you can see, you don't have to select any pronouns, you don't have to select any gender. Here is your armed force status, so this is where you'll put whether you're currently serving or previously served, and then also your status at the time that you will enroll. So when you start, let's say in the fall of 26, will you have left the military by that time? And here's where you put in your branch, your start date, and then your ETS date. There's room to put more than one experience there, for example, if you're in the reserves or something. Ethnicity question about being, about obviously your ethnicity and your race. As you can see, these are not required, so you do not have to fill it out. So for the sake of the example, I will fill it out. Number of languages that you speak, and then your degree of proficiency in that language, where you were born, and how long you've lived here, and then your social security number, which is required, as it says, if you're applying for federal financial aid. If you are not applying for financial aid, you don't need to put your social security number, although we recommend that everybody apply for financial aid because you never know what you might be eligible for. And this is a fee waiver question. So this is not always clear. So you can see that these are the criteria you have to meet to be eligible for a fee waiver. For many of you, this might not be applicable. It might be, but it might not be. If it's not applicable, After you've completed the application, you can reach out to the school that you're applying to and ask for a fee waiver, and that should take care of that part of, again, actually applying or sending in your application. So if you don't meet these criteria, don't worry, there's still a way for you to not pay the fee. Many schools will also have policies for veterans where you don't pay the application fee. That's something that you can figure out at the end. If you've used UStrive, you can select yes, but I think most of our applicants will not have used UStrive. All right, marital status. This is your parents. And then if you are, living on your own, for example, that's how you would fill that out. And you can also select number of children or dependents. For your parental information, you don't have to fill out everything. They do ask for first and last name of both your parents, but if they're not, involved in your college application process, there's no need to put, for example, their email addresses or their phone numbers. Same thing with parent too. So I've selected father here. I've given my father's first and last name, and that was it. And then their education level. And then a sibling. So regarding high school or most recent high school, this is where you'll put in where you earned your college degree, and you can see that it's your college degree, sorry, your high school degree, and you can see that it's looked at my address and given me the most, the closest ones to my location. Let's say, that's where I went to high school. That's what it looks like. Now let's search by high school name and let's do GED. You can see here that there are some GED granting institutions that are listed here, and if that's how you earned your how you completed your high school career with a GED, no problem. You can come in here and select the GED program if you see it. And if you don't see it, you can do I don't see my school on the list and give some information. For example, the name. That's how you do the high school. Date of entry, boarding school. Did you graduate? Yes. And then when you graduated. No change in progression. This is really if you started in one high school, left a high school, if you've graduated early, it'll ask you for some clarifying information about that, or if you graduated late. If you did not graduate from that high school, from the high school that you've listed here, you can put when you left. Did you earn your high school equivalency? Again, that's the GED, and then you can put when you earn that. And this is where you'll put any other schools that you've attended. So like I said, if you've left one high school and then started at another, you can put in your secondary high school, and then why you left. Usually, for reasons like moving. That's probably the most common reason people leave high schools, in the middle of their progression. And then if you've taken any coursework. So if you've done any coursework while you were, in high school, this is where you would put that, right? Dual enrollment, a summer program, or credit awarded by the college. This is not talking about like the transfer set or any credits you might have taken after you've graduated high school. This is talking about like while you were in high school. So if you've had dual enrollment, this is where you'll put, that information. And then here's where you'll put some context around your high school. So the size of your class, whether your school ranked, that would be on your high school transcript, and then your scale and your GPA. And of course, whether it's weighted or unweighted. Here you start to list out your most recent courses. So this is not going to be, in this section, it's not going to be everything you've ever taken, but what you've taken most recently. Again, this is as though you're, sort of in the high school or coming out of the high school, applying as a first year. So here I've listed, the subject area, the class name, the level, right? And then when you took it, you can hit continue, and then any honors, beginning with 9th grade or international equivalents. So again, we're not talking about middle school. We're not talking about any post-high school work. This is strictly high school. And then you can see if you do have any awards or things like that, you can select postgraduate. And you can add up to 5 of those. Here at the community-based organizations, you can list service to school, and we would appreciate if you did that. So community-based organizations are any organization that is a nonprofit that has helped you through your application process. So you could be working with several, but service to school is one of the options, and you can put in your staff advisor's name. This is the person that you probably spoke to on the phone when you first joined service to school. And then you can put, their email addresses. And then finally, what your plan is. Now, this application is only for the 2026 cycle. If you're going to start beyond this application is not relevant to you because applications change year to year. And what your interest is, and then of course what degree you'd like to earn in the future. Here you can self-report official scores. By self-reporting, we mean that you write it here on the application. You don't have to, depending on the school, you don't have to pay to send it from College Board or the ACT. So if you have taken a test, we would recommend self-reporting it if you want to share that score. If you don't want them to know about the test, you don't have to list it here. This is only if you want them to be able to see that score. It'll be on your actual application. So here I've said, yes, I want to share my SAT score. I'm not an international applicant, so these leaving exams don't apply to me. Here's the SAT score I want to report. I don't want to report the essay score. I'll sit for it again, and this way they know, okay, well, we can expect to see another score, in January of 26. But here's what I've listed. Now you can see here that I wrote that these scores are from 2023. One thing to note regarding testing, we generally consider them to be accurate for about 5 years. Anything older than 5 years, it's not like an accurate reflection of who you are as a student. So this score is not the most accurate, but it's still something that I want to share with them. Activities. This is a really important part, and this could be an entire section in itself. But essentially, we want you to list everything that you've been a part of, whether that was in high school, if you obviously your military service, you can list here jobs. But basically, we want to get a sense of where you're spending your time. So no matter what, we recommend completing this section. And if you're having a hard time deciding what you can list or how you should list it, talk to your staff advisor, because this is really an important way for them for colleges to understand what you like to do and how you're going to be involved on their campus. So here's an example that I've completed. I was president of the art club at my fictional high school, or in my fictional high school experience. The years that you've participated, when you participated, and then an estimate of hours per week and weeks per year. And then whether you want to do something similar in college. Again, they'll use this information to kind of figure out, is this, how will this interest translate to their campus? The descriptions, kind of like resumes, like you want them to be, you want to understand the impact that you've had, and that's why I recommend sticking to things that are quantitative, because it's easy to sort of measure that impact and to get that across to the admissions offices. You can add 10 of those. Again, you don't have to fill up all 10, but you should at least do 1 or 2. Like I said, this can include military service. It can include household responsibilities, family responsibilities, taking care of kids, taking care of parents, anything really where you spend your time so that the college has a complete picture of who you are. This question is fairly new. And by fairly new, I mean it is new. This is asking about your household responsibilities or other circumstances. Again, providing that context. So please select which responsibilities you spend 4 or more hours per week doing. For our population, it could be managing a family, or, it could be working at a paid job to contribute to my income. It can be taking care of my own children, or, household members, or, you know, there's a lot here. You can see that there are follow-up questions. So how long you might be commuting if you're working, whether you've experienced homelessness, and then some other things. So you should certainly fill this out if you feel that you want to share this information with the schools. Again, it provides that important context to them. That's why they're asking. And then here is the personal essay section. So again, when we talk about the essay, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the Common App essay. You can see that some schools require it, some schools don't. Even if they don't require it, we would recommend writing one. It's a chance for you to talk about something that you want to talk about, and also a chance for you to use your voice in the application process. So we can certainly help with essays. That's, again, an entire topic in itself. But feel free to go to your staff advisor and ask them for advice on your essays. Your ambassador can also help you with this. But you will put your essay here. You'll see you have a maximum of 650 words, and like I said, it's not required by everybody, but wherever it is required, you should send it. And even if it's not required, if you've written it, you might as well send it to them. That's the essay. And then additional information, this is another place for you to write any sort of extenuating circumstances that you've encountered. So access to a safe and quiet study space, access to internet, community disruption, natural disasters, is certainly a big one. And then, of course, military deployment or activation. So if you have been interrupted in your educational journey, you can write about that in this section. So yes, you can hit yes if you'd like to talk about those experiences and give a little bit more context to that. And then if you want to write anything additional, this is the place to do that. So I would save this box for any of these things that they've sort of delineated for you. And this box, the additional information box, for anything having to do with things like your academic progress. For example, if you did poorly, if you got some bad grades or things like that. So that's where you can put that, that information. So let's say I don't want to complete that, and I don't want to complete that. We'll continue. Courses and grades. This can be a little bit of a tedious section. This is where you will write any or all coursework you've taken. This is required by certain colleges, not all of them. So if you are applying to a school that requires it, you'll see that it will say here. But I think because none of my schools require it, it's not letting me complete it. Let me see. Yeah. Well, in the courses and grades section, you'll want to have a copy of your transcript, your high school transcript, so you can write down everything that you've taken. You can input it into the Common App, but it will ask you for the class, name, the level, sort of like we did previously with that most recent coursework, grades, things like that. So here's a list of schools. So certainly doesn't look like it's not most schools that are asking for that information. All right. So that's how you complete the Common App. And then, like I said, once you're done with that, it's fairly straightforward. I think probably the biggest thing to think about is going to be your essay and your activities list. But once you have those, you plug them in and you can complete everything else fairly quickly. We never recommend waiting to the last minute, especially with the Common App. Because many applicants will try to submit their applications right before the deadline. Or right at the deadline, honestly. Common App has been known to crash, and so we don't want you to be in that situation. So work on your essay first, your list of activities, and then you can come in and fill everything else out. Lastly, these are the supplemental essay questions, and I'll just go over one quickly so you can see what you can expect. But let's say you're applying to BC. College information will give you sort of the lowdown of deadlines and some links to other things and some things that you should know. They'll let you know what's required. This is updated every year, so this should be accurate for your cycle. And then general, this again is where you're putting the school-specific stuff. So you'd like to start in September of 26. They also offer a spring option of January 26. But let's say you want to start in the fall semester, and then you want to do regular decision. You want to be an off-campus commuter. Need-based financial aid, yes, we think everyone should apply for need-based financial aid. The worst that they can say is no. Okay, this is a DACA question. Yes, so you can see here that this is where you can, they'll ask about fee waivers and then some questions about majors and things like that. So really the Common App, fairly straightforward. You might get into the weeds a little bit more with the supplemental applications. If you have any questions or any concerns at any time, really, you can always contact someone at Service to School, your staff advisor, your ambassador, and we are happy to help you figure out the answer to your question. Stay tuned. I'll have we have lots of webinars and lots of other ways to address some of the more commonly asked questions when it comes to applying to college. So take a look at our events page and to stay up to date on those. But like I said, you can always reach out to someone at Service to School. Thank you. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.